Hey guys, my name's Emily. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing something new. I am going to be doing Monday mini non-spoiler book reviews. I'm not sure how many of these I will be doing. Every once in a while when I get a bunch of books together that I want to put into a video like this. So the purpose of these videos is to review similar books in a non-spoiler way so that if you like one of them, then you could try another. Some won't be for everyone, but I wanted a fun way to review certain books while also recommending similar ones to them. And so this is something I'm going to try. I'm going to see how it goes. I'll have to wait and see how you guys like it, whether you do or you don't. But I thought it was something fun, and I'm going to give it a try. So for this one, the three books I chose to do were These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling, The Dead in the Dark by Courtney Gold, and A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. What's tying these books together is they're each kind of spooky, mysterious, and they all have female-female relationships in them. And I just wanted to do these three as the first one because I came up with the idea for last month in October, but I didn't finish them in time. So I'm going to still do this, but just move it to November. So let's get into it. The first book we're going to be talking about is These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. I'm actually going to be reading the synopses for all three of these because I don't want to take a chance of accidentally spoiling. So we're going to go with it. Hannah's a witch, but not the kind you're thinking of. She's the real deal, an elemental witch with the power to control fire, earth, water, and air. But even though she lives in Salem, Massachusetts, her magic is a secret she has to keep to herself. If she's ever caught using it in front of a non-witch, she could lose it for good. So Hannah spends most of her time avoiding her ex-girlfriend and fellow elemental witch, Veronica, hanging out with her best friend and working at the fly-by-night cauldron, selling candles and crystals to tourists, goths, and local Wiccans. But dealing with her ex is the least of Hannah's concerns when a terrifying blood ritual interrupts the end of school year bonfire. Evidence of dark magic begins to appear all over Salem, and Hannah's sure it's the work of a deadly blood witch. The issue is, her coven is less than convinced, forcing Hannah to team up with the last person she wants to see, Veronica. While the pair attempt to smoke out the blood witch at a house party, Hannah meets Morgan, a cute new ballerina in town, but trying to date amid a supernatural crisis is easier said than done, and Hannah will have to test the limits of her power if she's going to save her coven and get the girl, especially when the attacks on Salem's witches become deadlier by the day. So the way I'm going to be reviewing these is I'm going to use G from Book Roast Call Pile method, which is character, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment. Yeah, and I'm just going to use those to kind of go through. So first for characters, I enjoyed the main characters, but I also hated some of the side characters, but I think in the way that you're supposed to hate them. I liked how diverse the cast of characters was. We had different representation in the LGBTQIA plus territory. I'm not going to go into it because I kind of want you to just find out for yourself, but I really did enjoy the main character, Hannah. She definitely stood up for herself, and I really enjoy that in characters. So the atmosphere, it takes place in Salem, but there wasn't really anything other than that going on for the atmosphere, other than the mystery of finding the blood witch and stuff. So the atmosphere wasn't its strong suit, but I guess if you just take the feeling of being in Salem along with the rest of this, then I guess. The writing, I thought it was quick and easy, and it flowed really nicely. The plot, I think the plot was well thought out, even though some things were convenient and reoccurring. It kind of felt like one of those things like, oh, something would happen. Okay, wait a little bit. And then another thing would happen, and it was just, but the resolution for each of these things was so convenient, but I didn't mind it too much just because I kind of went into this with semi-low expectations. So for intrigue, I was drawn in right away by Hannah and how well she dealt with ending her relationship to someone who is toxic in her life. I thought this book handled that pretty well. and, you know, the process of moving on. The mystery also had me really wanting to figure out what was going on and who this Blood Witch was and why there would be a Blood Witch to begin with. So for logic, I understood everything pretty well. Nothing was ever too hard to understand, but I also thought it could have been a little more complex and delve deeper into the magic and the coven. And I also really liked that the parents were in a picture, because most books in the YA genre that I read anyway, you don't really find the parents in the picture, or they're absent, or, you know, vice versa, whatever. But I really enjoyed that the parents were in this one. For enjoyment, I liked this a lot more than I thought I would, because, like I said, I went into this with low expectations. This book was fun, and sometimes it was sad. But I kept wanting to know what was going to happen next, and the ending definitely did not hold back. So all three of these books have some trigger warnings, and I wanted to go over those. So for this book, it had blood, murder, attempted murder, house fires, toxic relationship, kidnapping, death of a parent. Those are just some. There might be more. Those are just the ones that I wrote down that stood out to me. I did give this book 4 stars. I think because it was a little cheesy and, you know, convenient in places, I did dock it a star. But I definitely think you should pick this up if you like strong female characters that can handle dealing with the breakup of a relationship very well. LGBT rep, obviously, that's pretty much surrounding this whole entire video with these 3 books. Anything witchy, mysteries, and cheesy quick fun reads. I definitely think if you like any of these things, you will really enjoy this book. I don't think you'll like this book if you don't like, you know, the parents not believing the kids, or, you know, talking of a toxic relationship, or, you know, stupid teenage decisions and reoccurring events that have convenient solutions. Definitely don't pick them up if you don't like those things, because that is pretty much what happens throughout this whole book. But I found it fun, quick, and easy, and I absolutely loved it. So check this one out if you haven't already. Okay, we're going to move on to the second book, which is The Dead in the Dark by Courtney Gold. Again, I'm going to read the synopsis because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. The dark has been waiting for far too long, and it won't stay hidden any longer. Something is wrong in Snakebite, Oregon. Teenagers are disappearing, some turning up dead, the weather isn't normal, and all fingers seem to point to TV's most popular ghost hunters who have just returned to town. Logan Ortiz Woodley, daughter of the TV's pair of specters, has never been to Snakebite before, but the moment she and her dads arrive, she starts to get the feeling that there's more secrets buried here than they originally let on. Ashley Barton's boyfriend was the first teen to go missing, and she's felt his presence ever since. But now that the Ortiz Woodleys are in town, his ghost is following her, and the only person Ashley can trust is the mysterious Logan. When Ashley and Logan team up to figure out who or what is haunting Snakebite, their investigation reveals truths about the town, their families, and themselves that neither of them are ready for. As the danger intensifies, they realize that their growing feelings for each other could be a light in the darkness. So characters, I really liked Logan and Ashley, although Ashley did kind of annoy me throughout this book. And I really did enjoy the diverse cast of characters throughout. So Logan's dads, I thought that was, you know, an interesting addition to this. It was nice to just see a difference with parents, and also, you know, really enjoyed that the parents were involved. Like, what? 2 books in a row? The atmosphere, it takes place in the small town of Snakebite, Oregon. It was very dark and ominous feeling, and I loved the small town vibes it gave off. It had you wanting to, like, look over your shoulder every time, you know, you stepped foot outside. It was just so good. The atmosphere was amazing. The writing was good. I enjoyed the different POVs and how they were written, and at one point you also do get a point of view, a few times throughout the book actually, of the darkness. So that was interesting. The plot was there, but sometimes I felt like it got lost, and it was slow going. So, like, you would have something happen, but then for a while, nothing would happen. And then you'd have something, but then nothing. So it was just, you know, that part was a little off to me. And sometimes these books rely on the plot, and if there's barely a plot, it's gonna drag a little. The intrigue, at the beginning I was drawn in, but then, like I said, the middle turned into a bit of a slog for me. I still enjoyed it, but not a lot happened. It slowed down, and I found myself not wanting to pick it up when I put it down, but once I picked it up, I did enjoy it, if that makes sense. I do have notes here, so if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes because I read 2 of these books last month, and I just finished one at the beginning of this one, so bear with me. But yeah, I really enjoyed it when I was reading it, but when I put it down, it was really hard to pick up sometimes. Logic, everything made sense. I thought it was explained well at the end, but I was a little confused about what was going on throughout the book. So, like, the whole mystery surrounding, like, this town and, like, her father's and the darkness and stuff, like, it got a little confusing, and I wasn't quite sure where it was going, which I'm sure that was the intended purpose, but in a way that I was really not sure, like, what the plot of this book was doing, I guess, if that makes sense. I really liked how the parents were in the picture for both sides. Like, you get to see Logan with her dads and then Ashley with her mom. I also really enjoyed the aspect about how flawed family relationships can be. So between Logan and her dads, you know, she kind of has a strained relationship with one, and the other she's kind of closer to. And then Ashley with her mom, you know, she kind of feels like she has to be a certain way because that's what is expected of her. So I really enjoyed getting to see the differences and the realness of how relationships with parents can be. And as for the enjoyment, I loved the small town vibes. This book is filled with small town vibes. And getting to see 2 opposite people work together, it was almost like an enemies to lovers, sort of. And the atmosphere was amazing and dark. I will give that. This book is very atmospheric. But it did have some trigger warnings, and I did get these ones from the author's website. So we have murder, homophobia, but in a verbal, non-physical way, death of a child, drowning, and slurs. I gave this book 3 stars, my reason being I got confused. Like, the plot was a little non-existent sometimes, in my opinion. But I think you'll like this book if you enjoy small town vibes and love dark atmospheric books. Definitely this one. And slower paced books. This book was slow. It had the coming out storyline. You'll like it if you like mysteries and paranormal stuff and things. Obviously LGBT rap. And a slow burn romance, I will say. It's very slow to the point of almost being non-existent. If you like any of those things, I think you'll like this book. I don't think you'll like this book if you prefer fast-paced books and quick answers. And if you don't like slow burn romance to non-existent romance, then you probably won't like this book. But I definitely think you should still give it a try. The writing is really nice, and it was such a good story. So for the last book I'm going to be going over, that is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. Again, I'm going to read the synopsis. Felicity Morrow is back at Dalloway School. Perched in the Catskill Mountains, the centuries-old ivy-covered campus was home until the tragic death of her girlfriend. Now, after a year away, she's returned to graduate. She even has her old room in Godwin House, the exclusive dormitory rumored to be haunted by the spirits of 5 Dalloway students. Girls, some say, were witches. The Dalloway 5 all died mysteriously, one after another, right on Godwin grounds. Witchcraft is woven into Dalloway's history. The school doesn't talk about it, but the students do. In secret rooms and shadowy corners, girls convene, and before her girlfriend died, Felicity was drawn to the dark. She's determined to leave that behind her now. All Felicity wants is to focus on her senior thesis and graduate. But it's hard when Dalloway's occult history is everywhere, and when the new girl won't let her forget. It's Ellis Haley's first year at Dalloway, and she's already amassed a loyal following. A prodigy novelist at 17, Ellis is a so-called method writer. She's eccentric and brilliant, and Felicity can't shake the pull she feels to her. So when Ellis asks Felicity for help researching the Dalloway 5 for her second book, Felicity can't say no. Given her history with the arcane, Felicity is a perfect resource. And when history begins to repeat itself, Felicity will have to face the darkness in Dalloway and in herself. So the characters, I really enjoyed Felicity as a main character and seeing her go through the motions, trying to get her life back on track. That was really nice to see in a book. The side characters were great too. I thought that they all wove really well throughout the story and interacted with Felicity in an interesting way. The atmosphere, obviously the school setting, dark academia kind of, and history really made this book stand out. It was dark and eerie, and it had that air of mystery to it of the Dalloway Five and obviously what happened to Felicity's girlfriend that died the year before. The writing was great and easy to get through. I really enjoyed it. It was very smooth. The plot was good. It had a direction and it stuck to it, although it felt at times like it was struggling to weave the subplots throughout it together. Intrigue, the book had me interested from the beginning. I needed to know what was really going on because you weren't sure if something was paranormal or not, and that really just had me wanting to figure it out. Not to mention, I just really wanted to know what was going to happen to these characters because you kind of had this vibe that something bad was going to happen to them. So the logic really messes with the characters in this book, and it did a nice job of explaining things towards the end, and it was nice to see the character arc of Felicity believing in one thing and then coming to terms with the actual belief of like what is happening. As for enjoyment, I really enjoyed this book. Once I started reading, I didn't want to stop, but when I put it down, it was hard to pick it back up, just like the last book. But it was definitely a good spooky read. It was perfect for this time of the year, honestly. We're going to go over the trigger warnings. There are a lot. You can go on Goodreads and find more, but I just wrote down some of the major ones. So murder, gore, violence, loss of a loved one, blood, rituals, anxiety and anxiety attacks, gaslighting, parental neglect. I forgot to mention that this one does have a parent in it, but it's normally what you would see in YA, non-existent practically, and not a very good parent. There is animal deaths and some suicidal thoughts. I gave this book 3.5 stars. A part of me really wants to like up it to 4 stars, but there is just something, and I just can't point it out exactly, but a part of me wants to give it 4 stars, but I'm going to keep it at 3.5, and I don't know why. There was just something. So I felt like maybe there were some, like the ending was a little too quickly over with. Maybe that was why, the ending. If you read it, you'll understand. But we're gonna go with that. I think you'll like this book if you like morally gray characters, if you like school settings and witchy vibes, if you like dark themes and mysteries. And this was also kind of a coming out story, but this one had a little tiny bit of spice to it. So that was a nice addition to kind of get like 3 different things going on here within these books. I don't think you'll like this if you don't like darker themes, any of the trigger warnings. I think it was hard to read sometimes. And if you don't like the darker themes, I don't think you're gonna like this, in my opinion. But I would still check it out if you don't have a problem with any of those. So we made it to the end of the video. I'm so excited to have read these 3 books, and I really hope that if you've read 1 or 2 of these, that maybe you'll give the 3rd one a chance, or vice versa, you know. That was the whole point of this video. Like, if you've read one of them, maybe check out the other 2. And I enjoyed getting to check out all 3. I thought they were very well done and definitely had the spooky vibes, and the addition of the, you know, LGBT representation in them really just added to the experience. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Like it if you liked it, comment down below what your thoughts are on any of these books and if you'll be checking any of them out. And subscribe if you want to, I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you again in my next video. Bye.